Back in After Effects, go to File, New, Maxon Cinema 4D file. Make sure it's going into your project folder first of all. I'm going to call this the 3D roller. Now I'm going to make my object and my extrude, but instead of having a skin over top of it or a material that's solid, I'm going to have that transparent text over top of it. So let's go up to the spline menu here and make a rectangle. Now this rectangle, I kind of want to make it the width and height of relative to my text. So I'm going to go with something like 1000 by 150. So I get kind of a long, flat roller type thing. And I'm going to hit the rounding here. So now the rounding edge will give it kind of a roll as well on the edge. So that's all good. Now I'm going to go up to my extrude menu and I'm going to add an extrude to this and just place the click and hold and drag that rectangle underneath. So now the extrude applies to the rectangle. So in the extrude menu, I'm going to make sure that the start cap and end cap are off. That's all good. And the coordinates, I'm going to make sure this, the Z axis, let's go to 50. So now I got this long, flat kind of roll type thing here. So that sets us up for creating our material. So let's go and do that now. I'm going to go to Create, Default New Material, and I'm going to double click on where it says Matte in here, and I'm going to take the reflectance off, but instead put the alpha on. So the alpha here now, I'm going to select in texture. I'm going to go to this little ... or ellipse box here, click on that, and select my file. So there's my PNG for Just Do It. And it's going to be on the wrapped around an alpha channel, meaning it'll be transparent still. So that's pretty good. So with my color selected, I've got white. If I take it off, I get black. So I'm going to do both. So I'm going to leave this one white, call it white by double clicking on it. Let's click off this. And I'm going to press Command C, Command V to copy this. I'm going to call this one black because we're going to do both, right? And I'll double click on the black and just take the color off of it so now that it's black. So now I've got white and black materials. So now I have my two materials and I'm looking at my roller and I'm going to apply those materials to my extrude. So first let's start with this one, with the white. I'm going to drag it just onto the object and I can see that there it is. I get it on there. Now, if it's not the right orientation, if it's backwards, you can always hold down 3 and rotate your camera view, right? So I think I'm pretty good here. It looks pretty good at this angle, but get it so it actually reads right side up. That's a super important one. So your viewer isn't watching this thing happen backwards, right? So I've got it on here. It doesn't look like much. It's spread across that whole extrude shape, but it's cool. It's got the transparency. It's, you know, it's good. But if I look at this now, take a close look at your menu here over at extrude. You can see there's a little box here where the white object is attached, right? Now that is called a tag. So if I go down here to this menu on the bottom, I can adjust the settings on that tag. So what does that mean? Well, the first thing I want to do here is just make sure that the side here is just on the front, because I'm going to have the black and the white actually work together. So it's only on the front, right? I'm going to make sure that tile is checked and use UVW for bump. And I'm going to go down here to tiles U, right? And I'm going to increase that to 2. So now you see how it kind of condenses it down into that the vertical and the horizontal, so it looks a little better, right? And I can control how this thing moves, but before we do any of that, I'm going to actually add the other one, the black one, and put it on the back. So here again, I'll drag it onto the object, and there it is, and I'll just go to the side and make it on the back. So now, let's take a look. you can see those numbers changed, right? So if I toggle between these two tags, they're material tags that are on that extrude, you can see the numbers changed a little bit here. So I'm going to make that one 2 as well. So now they're basically right over top of each other, which is kind of cool, right? So I'm going to move my playhead, right, the blue playhead down to 0, and I'm going to make sure that my sequence here is the whole thing is 30 seconds, because I just want to export one single loop, a second-long loop, and then I'm going to adjust it in After Effects. So that's 30 frames, right, is the whole animation. So if I look here, it only lasts 30 frames. So if it's at 0 now, I'm going to hit the keyframe for offset U, right? I'm going to go to my black tag, so click on that, and click on offset U, right? And if I look at this, I just want to overshoot it slightly so that my loop, I can actually adjust it in After Effects. So I'm going to just look at this 30 seconds, and I'm going to move this one over to, say, 51. And then I'll click my keyframe there. So now this moves from here, you can see the just is what I'm looking at. So it goes to there. Now, do the same thing on the white tag. So I've got an offset here, starts at 0. Let's put that one also at 51. Now it's orange, so that means I need to click it so that it actually does something. So now, this is what I get. In this 30-second or this second long, I get that animation. So I'll press play just to preview it. Now it slows down. So what I'm going to do here, so by default, what happens with these is that you get a ramp up, ramp down animation. So because it's a loop, I want to change that. So I'm going to go over to Layouts and go to Animate. And you can see here that I'll just click on the two materials, so shift click on both material options. And you can see that this ramp up, ramp down is selected. I'm going to turn that into this vertical linear. So now let's preview this. That looks pretty good. Oh, there's a little hiccup in there. So any overshoot that we have, we can always adjust that by a frame in After Effects. Cool. I'm going to go back in my layouts back to standard. And one thing I'm going to do here is adjust my camera angle, because as we know, the default camera is what we're going to see in After Effects. So I'm going to go up to my little gear icon here for my preferences, and I'm going to make this a square. So 1200 by 1200. So that's good. So it's a square. And now this is what I get. So I'm now going to just adjust my camera angle. So I'm going to use the 3, hold on 3 and scroll for my pan, right? I kind of like this top view. My zoom in, zoom out is holding down 2 and scrolling up and down. So now this is what I get. That looks pretty good. Maybe do some vertical alignment too. So let's go to, hold down 1, and just adjust it in the frame. So it's kind of like that. Let's see. There we go. I got this little roller happening. I got a little stutter in there, but I'm going to adjust that in After Effects. But that's what I'm going to export. I'm going to go to File, Save Project. So that's saved now. And when I go back to After Effects, I'll be able to alter this slightly. Now, my project is ready to be edited in After Effects. All right, in After Effects, I'm going to make a new composition. I'm going to call this 3D Roller, and I'm going to make it 1200 by 1200, and the duration 10 seconds. So that 3D Roller now, I'm going to take the 3D Roller text that I just made and drop that in, and there it is, my view. Now, if I ever want to make an adjustment to the camera angle, I can go back out to Cinema 4D Lite and make that adjustment, right? I can say do Shift and zoom in a little bit. Just make that adjustment here. I just press Save. Always important to go up to File, Save Project if you made a change, and then go back to After Effects, and it adjusts right away. So that's the power of having this link. But once I have it set, right, I'm going to play through this. Let's go to the end here. So I'm going to press O for out, and then press N for my work area to be ended there. And I'm just going to slowly preview this. There's a couple of things I need to do to make sure that this thing loops properly, right? There's a little hiccup there, right? The tiniest little hiccup. And we'll just see, it's what basically we overshot it, right? And we want to do that just so that we actually have a full loop. Because if you don't overshoot, then you might come up short. So I'm going to just take a zoom in and actually just hit my mark here, just so the T is just at the right level. So I'm going to use a ruler just to get right down to where the top of the T hits, right? So that's my out point, right? So if I go to the in point, you can see I'm at the same spot, right? So I need to be just beyond that. So if I go to out and back one frame, I'll go there. So now I'll press Option, bracket out to that point, and press N to end it there. Now let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to just go Fit to View, and now it's much more seamless, right? So I've just created this loop. I overshot it by one just to make sure I had enough in there, but now it's much smoother. So what we're going to do here now, we've got this preview mode on, so I'm going to go up to where it says Viewport Draft and go to Current. That should give us, right, just the black background. Now I'm going to put a background in here so we can see the black text, don't worry. But for now, we're going to export this with a transparency, because right now it should look like that, right? So let's export this transparency. So I'm going to go up to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and I'm going to change this to a PNG sequence. So hit Lossless, and go to PNG Sequence. And within it says Channels RGB, I'm going to make sure that I export my alpha channel as well. Press OK. Then I'll just make sure that everything's going into the right. So I can do it on the desktop, but I'm going to actually make sure it's saving into my project folder. I'll make a new folder here and call it 3D Roller. And press Save. Now it's going to export those frames out. So I'm going to press Render. I'm going to go back to my project window here. And I'm going to make a new composition. Call this 3D Roller Full Screen. I'm going to make this a full screen. I'm going to actually make it 1920 by 1080. So now I get that. So I'm going to import my PNG sequence, right? So I'm going to go to File, Import, File. There's 3D Roller Demonstration. I'm going to click on this. And it gave me these 28 PNGs, which are the sequence. So I'm going to select them all by shift selecting. I'm going to make sure that Create Composition is clicked off, but that PNG sequence is clicked on. So super important. You don't want 28 stills, you want a sequence. So I'm going to press Open. There it is. I'm going to drop it in. Let's just play it through. Beautiful. All right, so first thing first, let's add a background into this. So I'm going to go to Layer, New, Solid. And the yellow is fine. Nice bright yellow. Beautiful. Okay, so there's that, and I'm going to just press N, preview it, Looks pretty good. So now you got it. We're gonna go to the 3D roller here, and I'm gonna control click or right click on it in the project window, and I'm gonna go to interpret footage and main. So this is where I'm gonna establish a loop, a 10 times loop down on the bottom here, and then press OK. So now when I extend this out, it's just gonna loop multiple times. And because I eliminated that little hiccup in there, this is what I'm going to get. So pretty cool. It's a little slow in the preview, but you get it. So now what I'm going to do here with this 3D roller, I'm going to actually make a couple copies of them, you know, because what could be better than having multiples, right? So I'm going to make this 50%, and I'm going to copy it 3 times. And I'm just going to, with position on the horizontal, just adjust the position of the 2 outer ones. So I've just copied and pasted the 3 layers and spread them out on the horizontal axis, leaving them in the center. So that's our animation. So it'll be almost 10 seconds because we lost the 2 frames, but it'll be just a nearly 10-second repeat here, 10 loops. And I'm going to go up to File, Export, Add to Media Encoder Queue.